G'day everyone, Viv here, hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back. It's time to learn how to make some clump foliage. We'll have a look at what we need in just a minute, but this project is not going to work for everybody. You may get it to work to a certain extent, but it relies on one very important piece of equipment which not everybody's going to have, or in some cases be allowed to use for this. But with that disclaimer sort of very vaguely mentioned, let's have a look at what we need, and I'll talk about what that meant in just a second.
So here's what we're going to need for the first part. Some type of foam, cushion foam. This is the sort of stuff that you'd find inside cushions or in a mattress or something like that. This is a soft variety, and I don't know how much you can see like the weave in it or how it sells. We need some water. You could alternatively get this stuff, which is different sorts of foam cushion, which has already been ground up, and you can buy these in big bags. They're sort of for stuffing inside stuffed toys or some insides of cushions and stuff like that. So you'll need some type of foam, which is essentially what Woodland Scenics products and other commercial stuff are made from. They're made from foam. So we'll need that, we'll need some water, we'll need some foam. If you're getting blocks of this or you're pulling it out of a mattress, you need some scissors to cut it up into chunks. And the most important piece of equipment is a good blender. Now I've used just a regular blender from sort of your Walmart or Kmart or Target or whatever, but I lashed out and I bought a relatively expensive commercial blender because I found this gives me the best blend. You could use a food processor or a cheaper blender, but you won't get as good as a result. So I'll get some other equipment out and we'll do some comparisons just to check. But this is what I use, and this is what I used to crush the foam or to grind the foam up to make the samples that I showed in the previous video and in the picture on Facebook. So the process is fairly straightforward. Essentially, we're going to take some of this foam. I'm going to use some of this pre-ground foam. Pop a bunch into the blender. We need to add water to this to make sure that it blends properly. So I'm going to add this cup of water. We really want this foam to be wet. And then we're going to blend it. It's pretty much as simple as that. So there we go. Clump foliage dust. Don't breathe this. So now we end up with a really sort of pulpy material in the bottom here. This goes into a metal colander, and I strain the water out into a bucket so I can reuse it, so I'm just not reusing heaps and heaps of water. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll have a look and see what this looks like. Obviously it needs to dry, but we'll be back in just a second. So here we go. I've started off with some of this stuff, which is just pre-ground foam, which you saw me pop into the blender and mush up. This is what it looks like after it's been strained through a colander or a sieve, or squeeze the water out by hand if you want to. And then here's a container of that dry foam material. So next up, all we need to do is add some colour to it, and this is very similar to the sawdust. I've got my gloves on. I'm going to take just a little bit of foam, chuck it in a bucket. And just for the sake of experimenting, because this process is time consuming, you need a good blender to get a proper grist. Because it's time consuming, for most people it's just going to be easier to buy commercial stuff. But if you want to, for whatever reason, make some blue clump foliage, then you can make your own colours. So just a little bit of paint, not a huge amount. And just some regular white glue. Now there's no proportions to this, it's just going to be by eye and by feel, and depends on how much you're making. And mine kind of varies each time I make it, but the end result works out quite well. So just a little bit of glue just to help it bind together, and then it's just a process of mashing this all together. And as you work it, you'll slowly see the colour will start to come through. So I've just squeezed this just a couple of times together, and you can already see, hopefully, that foam is starting to take that blue colour. And you can still see there's still quite a lot of foam that still needs to be worked in. And depending on what you're going for, you could leave it like that, or you could just continue on. Now, you could also just add the paint and no glue and do different colours and then blend them together with some glue so that you get some colour variation actually in your clump foliages. So there we go, I've just been working this around for 5 minutes or so, just grabbing clumps of it and just squeezing it in my hands and rubbing it all together just to work that colour through. Now the last process is I just use a piece of paper and I just grab a handful of it and then I just squeeze it together into a ball quite firmly, and then I just leave that. Now it might seem like at this stage we need more glue, but the more glue you add, the harder this will actually become. If we just add a little bit of glue at this stage, we still end up with a clump foliage that's soft, that it feels spongy and can be torn apart. And that's all I do. I just squeeze it together into just some rough random shapes and then just pop it down on some paper and let it dry. And once our clump foliage is dried, you end up with still quite a soft clump foliage that you can pull apart. You can see I haven't mixed through the paint completely, but and in this batch there really wasn't a lot of glue, so it's crumbling apart quite easily. But that's the process. It's fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of grinding up some foam and then adding some paint and some glue to it. Now, here is our 2 different samples of flock that I popped up and asked you which one is the commercial product and which one is Woodland Scenics. It's very, very interesting, and I'm going to put up here underneath these 2 the number of people that said if this was the commercial one or if this was the commercial one. This is a piece of Woodland Scenics clump foliage, and it belongs on the left. That is from this bag of light green clump foliage, FC182 from Woodland Scenics. The one on the right is what I've made. And the only way that a lot of people could tell is because this has one colour in it. This, on the other hand, has, I can see 3 different colours in this. And as I mentioned before, we can do this by tinting our ground foam, but instead of gluing it together, we make 3 different tints and then glue those tints together. Anyway, there we go. That's the commercial one. This was the one that I made. Very interesting to see people's reactions and comments. So there we go, another simple project. It's a fairly simple process and a simple technique. However, you do need a good blender to really get a good grist, to really ground that foam down quite nicely. We'll never get it as fine as the fine turf that Woodland Scenics makes. This is actually made by grinding the foam down, and I haven't found a way to be able to get it this small yet. I've tried different blenders. I've tried that really expensive commercial blender. I've tried a mortar and pestle, but I can't find a way to grind this foam down yet. I'm still working on that. But that's all these Woodland Scenics products are, is just ground foam and then coloured and glued together. Now, you can do this process with chemicals to treat the foam, dye it with an actual dye instead of paint, and then wash that dye and then secure it in there, but that requires chemicals and a whole bunch of stuff. If you have a look around, you can find articles and details about how to do that, but for our purposes, nice and quick and simple, some paint and some glue will do the job to some nicely ground foam. It's that simple. If you make some, post a picture on our Facebook. I'd love to see it, facebook.com/Knights of Dice. Because, like I said, if you want just a small amount of clump foliage for a little project that you're working on, it's probably easier to get some commercial stuff. However, if for whatever reason you do need some blue clump foliage or some purple clump foliage or some red clump foliage for an alien
themed table or scenery that you're working on, you can do it at home. You just need a good blender. That's all. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. See ya.